It was a holiday morning, and I was about to take my son, Ken, to his baseball match. I opened the door while saying, "Hurry up." To my surprise, standing there was my husband, whom I hadn't seen in almost 3 years. "This is our home." When my mind went blank and I was too shocked to think clearly, a woman who emerged from behind my husband continued, "We're gonna take custody of our son." It turned out that the woman was my sister-in-law, as I had feared. How many times I had hoped it was a mistake. It seemed too coincidental that my husband disappeared around the same time my sister-in-law did. With daily life being so hectic, I hadn't been able to look for my husband, who had vanished 3 years ago. Searching for detective agencies online, I found I couldn't afford to hire one, but trying to search on my own had its limits. I remembered the helpless and painful feelings from that time. "Hey Holly, who are you talking to?" "I'm ready to go." My son, Ken, came from down the hall, asking, "Oh, it's nice to finally meet you. You're Ken, right? I've wanted to meet you for so long." I felt sick hearing my sister's cloying, sugary voice, which I hadn't heard in a long time. From the past to now, she has captivated everyone with her catchy smile and talk. It was a voice I hoped never to hear again. "Father, what are you doing showing up now? And who is this woman? We're about to head out. Move." My husband and sister-in-law stood with their mouths agape in shock. "Huh? You guys don't know?" Both of them looked past me, their faces turning pale. I could barely contain my laughter. I'm Holly Saltfield, 38 years old. Currently, I make a living through remote work. I met my husband, Ryan, when I was 33, 5 years ago. I found a lost child in a supermarket. The child wasn't a toddler but was quite young, and the supermarket was in a large mall, so he probably got separated from his parents. I walked with the boy inside the store to the information desk. That's where I met Ryan. He was raising his son, Ken, on his own after a divorce. We hit it off immediately and started dating. He proposed soon after. I was an ordinary woman, honestly thinking I'd stay single forever, so I accepted his proposal right away. Ryan didn't seem overly emotional when I accepted, more relieved than anything. We were no longer in our 20s, so I guess that was to be expected, though felt unsatisfied a bit. Though I was inwardly jumping for joy. In hindsight, he probably just wanted a reliable wife to help with parenting, especially since his ex-wife was very beautiful. I immediately took him to meet my family. His family was far away, so we'd already informed them over a video call. Ryan was undeniably handsome, and my parents and sister, who were present, were all smitten at first sight. They never dreamt I'd marry such a handsome man. And him having a kid was a double surprise. But my dad was just happy his unremarkable oldest daughter was getting married, not minding that it was a remarriage with a child. My parents always doted on my younger sister, Emily, who's 8 years younger than me, and barely paid me any attention. Indeed, Emily was adorable and had even been asked to be a model. She always got to wear cute clothes, while I was stuck with budget-friendly ones. Despite her smile and charming ways fooling everyone around, Emily was actually a bully with a nasty personality. It might not be right for a sister to say, but she'd cry crocodile tears and say, "I didn't mean it. I just wanted to be friends," even when she bullied others, and everyone, including teachers and parents of the other kids, believed her. Emily always didn't convinced if she wasn't the best in every field, and if not she showed no mercy, even to me. She'd take whatever I saved up and bought for myself. However, she eventually got bored and would break it. So, as soon as I got to go college, I moved out to live alone. My parents never really cared about me, a daughter without charm, and never expected me a life with marital happiness. So when I was getting married, they were all for it. Emily seemed like she wanted to say something but didn't make a move on a man with a child. I was satisfied that I got through the meeting without Emily flirting with my husband, Ryan. Soon after, I moved into Ryan's house. At that time, I was working as an office employee, sharing household chores with Ryan and taking care of his son, Ken. However, after moving in, Ken's attitude changed drastically. Everything had been going too well until then. He'd been saying, "I want you to be my mom soon," but he started complaining about not liking the dinner or not wanting me at his school events. I was prepared, but having no parenting experience, I was at a loss. Ryan wouldn't believe me, insisting he wouldn't say that, and claimed it was just my imagination. Sure, Ken was the same sweet child in front of Ryan. But as soon as it was just the two of us, his attitude would change, showing irritation. My friends would just say, "That's how it is with stepchildren, don't worry about it." Even when I talked to his teacher, all I got was, "He's at a sensitive age. He's just testing his new mom. He might be afraid of losing his dad's love. He feels like his real mom abandoned him, so he's anxious you might leave him too. Please be patient and respond like an adult." I already knew such things from what all the parenting books and videos say. Nevertheless, the teacher followed up with, "But Holly, you've never come to a school event, and Ken often forgets his homework and things. What do you think about that?" I was taken aback. This sounded just like something Emily would do. I was mortified, it felt like dry and preachy. Ken was popular enough to be a class president. So he was viewed by the teacher as having a stepmom who wasn't nice to him. How many times have I asked, "Didn't the school call, or have you done your homework? Are you ready for tomorrow?" But Ken always ignored me, even though I tried to talk to him almost every day. I was so frustrated and felt pathetic, wanting to scream out loud. And Ken, without a care for my feelings, continued to ignore me. I kept telling myself to be grateful he wasn't getting into trouble, as I struggled through each day. I talked to Ryan about it numerous times, but he just brushed it off. 2 years into our marriage, we were discussing having a child of our own. But seeing Ken's current attitude, I was worried about what he would say if we actually had a baby. He would probably be disgusted and look at me even colder than before. Kids in upper elementary school know how babies are made. I wanted a child, but the anxiety was overwhelming. I felt mentally cornered. At that time, I never thought about divorce, but there was a dark cloud over the future of our marriage. Maybe Ryan just wanted any woman who would take care of the kids. If we had a second child, he'd probably leave everything to me. Ryan was popular in the neighborhood, a reputed father, but at home, he barely did anything. He would come home late at night, claiming work was busy, or spend all day in bed on weekends, saying he was tired. Then one day, while I was taking Ken to his tutoring, Ryan disappeared. He usually told me when he was going out, so I thought maybe he'd gone shopping. But when I returned after picking up Ken, Ryan still wasn't back. I sent Ken, who was complaining about his father's absence, to his room, and started calling our mutual friends and Ryan's colleagues. No one had any clue about his disappearance. I even called both our parents, but they didn't know either. In addition to that, my mom was in a frenzy because my sister, Emily, was missing. I spent the whole night looking in places they might be but found nothing. I was completely panicked. But I had to get Ken to school in the morning. Watching the sky brighten, I returned home, worried sick. As expected, Ken was grumpy in the morning, saying, "It's all your fault. You never take care of Dad properly. You can't even take care of me. It's your fault Dad left us." He spat out these words, far beyond what you'd expect from an elementary school kid, and left for school. I kept wondering what I did wrong, what I did to deserve this, or maybe what I didn't do. I headed to work with a terrible headache, riddled with these thoughts. When I got home, Ryan's stuff was gone. I noticed the divorce papers and a note in the safe. It read, "Holly, I'm sorry, but I've met the woman of my dreams. Take care of Ken for me. She doesn't want a child that's not hers. I've quit my job and canceled my phone, so don't bother contacting me. Thanks for everything." And in small letters at the end, "Sorry, big sis. I'm with Ryan now. I've told our parents. Goodbye." My sister ran away with my husband? I was filled with disbelief. I had no idea when all this had happened, completely unaware. Then I noticed that all the bank cards and credit cards in the safe were gone. He had taken all the savings we'd been building up to buy a big house. My head was spinning from the shock. I didn't know what to say when Ken came back. I had to protect my son, who saw me as an enemy. All we had left was the money I had saved, and I knew I'd have to work like crazy from now on. For about a month after that day, I barely remember anything. I think I explained to Ken that his dad had apparently run off and that we were getting a divorce. I remember Ken giving me a cold look and locking himself in his room. After that, he rebelled less against me, but I couldn't tell what he was really feeling. When he was a middle school student, Ken joined the baseball team and became a regular player in his second year, always going to matches here and there. Today was another match at a baseball field a bit far away. I was getting ready to take Ken to the game. I opened the door while telling him, "Hurry up. standing there was Ryan, whom I hadn't seen in almost 3 years. "This is our house." While my mind went blank because I was too shocked to think clearly, the woman who came out from behind Ryan continued. "We're gonna take custody of our son." It was indeed my sister, Emily. How many times had I hoped it was all a mistake? That Ryan and Emily disappeared at the same time was just a coincidence. I couldn't search for my missing husband 3 years ago due to daily life pressures. Searching for detective agencies online, I couldn't afford their services, but my own search efforts had their limits. The painful and helpless feelings from that time came flooding back. "Hey Holly, who are you talking to?" "I'm ready," said Ken, coming from down the hall. "Oh, I'm finally meeting you. You're Ken, right? I've always wanted to meet you." I felt sick hearing my sister's cloying, sugary voice, which I hadn't heard in a long time. She had always captivated everyone with her beaming smile and her sweet, cajoling voice. It was a voice I never wanted to hear again. "Dad, what are you doing showing up now? And who is this lady? We're about to leave. Move." Ryan and Emily stood there with their mouths open in shock. "What? You guys don't know?" Both of them turned pale as they looked behind me. I could barely contain my laughter. Yes, Ken was holding a cute little girl in his arms. After Ryan ran away, I worked tirelessly, juggling childcare and my job. The shock of his elopement had taken its toll, and I collapsed while talking to Ken. I lost consciousness and woke up in a hospital bed. Ken had called the ambulance for me. He was sitting beside my bed, looking sheepish. Then suddenly shook his head. "Holly, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how tough you had it. And you're pregnant, yet I've been making you do everything. I can't believe you're going to be a mom, but please, let's stay together as a family." "I was scared I'd end up all alone," Ken said, tears rolling down his cheeks. I felt a pang in my heart, realizing that he too had been struggling and lonely. And I was surprised to learn about my pregnancy. I was so caught up in daily life that I hadn't noticed. "Ken, I understand. I forgive everything. From now on, we'll work together as comrades. When the baby comes, you'll help out, right?" We shook hands and made up. He was there for me during the delivery, just like a husband would be, and he even helped choose the name Juliana for his half-sister. But I still don't know what Ken truly thinks of me. Is he just with me because he doesn't want to be alone, or does he see me as his mother? After all, he still calls me Holly. If Ryan decides he wants to live with him, it wouldn't be surprising if Ken chose to go with his biological father. "Well, let me introduce you to my lovely daughter, Juliana. I found out I was pregnant shortly after you left." "She's your child, Ken's half-sister," I said. I was amazed at how much humans can be shocked. Both of them were speechless. "So, Ken and Juliana, you're both Ryan's kids. Let's all live together as a family of 4. Holly, please leave now." My cunning sister quickly recovered and began giving orders. Ryan still seemed unable to grasp the situation. "Why do you think you can live here?" "When I filed for divorce, I went for legal advice and got the lease of this house changed to my name. You couldn't be contacted, so I let the lawyer handle everything. I had to prioritize securing a place to live since Ryan might have returned and kicked me out. I prioritized securing a place to live above all else. I'd rented a large apartment planning to live as a family, so the rent was a struggle, but my current job pays well enough to manage it. In fact, I'm even considering buying the apartment." "Taking such liberties. I married a plain woman like you and even let you have a cute daughter that looks like me. You should be grateful. So, you leave. I'll take care of the kids." I couldn't stay silent anymore. It's not like humans are born as easily as puppies. And he called me plain outright. I may look average, but I have talent in my work. "Well, I might consider it. I'm planning to buy an apartment in a couple of months, so after that, it's fine. But the kids are staying with me. I was planning to save a bit more before buying, but I can't afford to dilly-dally now. Once I deliver my current project, I won't have any financial worries." "But what about the kids? What about Ken? Juliana is my child, and I can't imagine handing her over to someone else, but I don't know Ken's true feelings. I suppress my feelings to avoid being abandoned, but maybe he'd prefer his biological father." "Hey, at least Ken has no relation to you, Holly. You're not saying you want to stay together because there's no blood relation, are you? Before I could think, my hand struck Ryan's cheek. And then Emily's in the same manner. Enough! Just because I've always been compliant doesn't mean I'll let you do whatever you want. Do you have any idea how worried I was when Ryan disappeared? I couldn't care less about Emily. Our parents were worried, but I knew she was probably being kept by some man. I felt a bit better after getting those long pent-up words off my chest. Yeah, Holly never gave up on me and worked non-stop. Whenever she had time, she'd contact the police where she filed the missing person report and call Dad's family and acquaintances, desperately searching. More for a stranger like me than for herself. Holly may not be blood-related, but she's far more admirable than my own parents, and I'm thankful for that. I was probably the most surprised by Ken's compassionate words. It warmed my heart to know he understood everything. My husband was flustered by this unexpected defiance from Ken, whom he thought was on his side. Ryan was looking back and forth between me and Ken, his eyes wide. My daughter started crying because of my loud, angry outburst. There, I didn't mean to scare you, sorry. Hey, that's how it is. I'm gonna live with Holly, Mom. Mom, we need to hurry or I'll be late for the game. Don't you have a meeting to catch? As if to say this conversation was over, Ken hustled everyone out the door and locked it. As we walked away briskly, I heard my husband and Emily shouting something in the background, but I didn't look back and got into the car. Mom, I'm sorry. I wanted to call you Mom sooner, but I was too embarrassed. Will you really stay with me? He was still just 14 years old. Ken looked at me with uncertain eyes. Remembering his anxious eyes when we first met made him even more precious to me, so I hugged him tightly. Of course, I will. But choosing me means you're okay with me nagging and fussing over you, right? But really, thank you for choosing me. I held back tears as I hugged him. He seemed embarrassed to be hugged and pushed me away. I felt amazing as I dropped him off. I still had time before my meeting, so I went back home. My husband and Emily were still there. Still here? No matter how many times you ask, my answer won't change. They followed me closely, trying to get into the room. But I didn't want to let them in, not even a step, so I didn't open the door. Just for one night. Won't you give me a chance to talk to my son? He had forever abandoned his last chance, and now he's asking for it? I glared at him, thinking, what now? Holly, what meeting? Weren't you just a secretary? They were obviously expecting something from me, but I couldn't tell them the truth. My comic on social media had gone viral, leading to corporate projects and product development. It was about my life with my son and daughter, and many people related to it. After taking maternity leave, I quit my job, and now I can live comfortably just from that work. I'm even invited to give lectures, not the ordinary person I used to be. That's old news. What about you? Some receptionist at a company? Emily had always relied on her looks and struggled with studies. She landed a job at a big company based on her appearance but ended up as a mere receptionist. Emily was clearly upset at being mocked by me. Her beautiful face contorted in anger. I quit that boring job a long time ago. Now, I'm focusing on self-improvement for Ryan's sake. So, she's basically unemployed and a freeloader. She's always been extravagant with money, which is probably why she's in this situation. Either way, it's none of my business. Got it. But this has nothing to do with me. If you don't leave soon, I'll call the police. Oh, Ryan, just give me your contact info. I'll reach out if I change my mind, I said, taking only his business card before sending them both away. I immediately contacted my lawyer, having successfully obtained Ryan's contact information. Initially, I had a free consultation, and as I started earning more, I got paid advice on divorce and property division. With Ryan found, it's time to formally demand property division and alimony. Of course, I'll demand compensation from Emily too. We have a meeting scheduled for today with all four of us. At the meeting place, the lawyers started talking right away. He demanded $200,000 each from both of them, $600 a month for child support, and the transfer of our shared properties to me. They were stunned, completely forgetting to object. It seemed they hadn't realized they could be held accountable for alimony after eloping for 3 years. Do you have any objections? Asked the lawyer, bringing them back to reality. Suddenly, they both started yelling. Shared property? There was none. It's all Holly's misunderstanding. It's because Emily kept wanting luxury bags and living extravagantly. Ryan was furious, trying to shift the blame onto Emily. What do you mean? Emily is cute, so she deserves expensive things. Wasn't that what you said when you gave me them? You're the one who went to high-end lounges, Ryan. You wanted to take Ken and get child support from Holly. Typical foolish Emily. She confessed everything herself, making it sound like a comedy show. Ryan didn't want Ken out of love, it was all about the money. Knowing this, I saw no point in discussing it further. If he really wanted custody, what should I have done? I just wanted to know his true intentions. Once I understood that, I was ready to wrap things up quickly. Enough of your shouting. Just pay the alimony and property division. That's all. I said coldly. Ryan shrank, looking down. But Emily was different. Jealous, ugly woman. You couldn't even keep your own husband. Don't act all high and mighty, you're inferior to me. Ugly people like you don't need money. You should wear cheap clothes and live modestly. Beautiful people like me need money. She was still a child. She thought she could get everything she wanted. She never tried to live by herself and always relied on someone. I was fed up and decided to silence her with my final arrow. By the way, whose bag are you carrying today? After Ryan left, many things went missing. I didn't own much, but my jewelry, pearl necklace, and brand bags disappeared. Especially the bags, I had them customized with names and charms so everyone could tell they were mine. If you don't want to be reported to the police, get the alimony ready. Ryan, you're complicit in this too. Got it? Hearing the word police, Ryan and Emily finally fell silent. They looked at me with pale faces. Their earlier bravado was gone. I felt a sense of clarity making these two superficial and empty people understand their situation. I was glad I had earnestly worked hard using my own abilities. I used to feel inferior to people who were fawned over for their looks, but those feelings disappeared. Feeling like a weight had been lifted off me, I said, "Thank you, lawyer. Please handle the rest. I have to pick up my daughter from daycare. Ryan, Emily, you have 1 week. If you can't manage it, you know what will happen," and I left. A week later, right at the deadline, they paid up. They must have begged their parents for help. Ryan's parents apologized to me, and my parents were angry. My in-laws had been suspicious when Ryan brought a different woman than the one they met over video call and didn't bring my son along. It turns out Ryan divorced his first wife due to his infidelity, and he probably thought keeping his son with him would prevent her from leaving. Typical of him. I was amazed but promised my tearful mother-in-law that we would visit once things settled down. She sent a substantial amount of money as alimony, which I'm saving for my son. My own parents, as usual, saw me as the villain who treated my younger sister with a cold-hearted mind. I decided to cut ties with them. Once I receive the alimony from Emily, I'll add her to my block list. Ryan seems to have racked up a lot of debt and is now working from morning to night, even doing cleaning jobs late at night. Emily entered the nightlife industry, getting roughed up there. No matter how pretty, at 30, she's treated as old. They got what they deserved. I have no sympathy for them. As for me, I moved into a new home with my son and daughter. And continued my busy life. I started dating a young lawyer from the firm that helped me, and life is fulfilling. Today is my birthday. My son is acting all fidgety. He seems to have told my daughter to keep a secret, but she cluelessly said, "Mommy, Uncle wants to be my daddy today." Maybe it's time for my daughter to have a younger sibling. Even an ordinary person like me was blessed with happiness, as I worked hard and honestly. I'm grateful that God is watching over us. I plan to keep living earnestly every day.